In the big God story, God had made a covenant with a man named Abraham. God is so good that he promised Abraham a nation of children. This promise was very important because one day Jesus, our Redeemer, would be born from Abraham's family tree. Abraham passed on this blessing to his son Isaac, and Isaac passed it on to his son Jacob. Today, we're going to hear about one of Jacob's sons, a man named Joseph. God had big plans for him. In a field in the land of Canaan, 17-year-old Joseph wears a beautiful robe given to him by his father Jacob. The wind bends the grass and rustles the leaves on the trees. Joseph's 10 brothers were watching him, and they were jealous because they knew he is their father's favorite son. At that moment, Joseph says,
I've been having some dreams, and in these dreams, you all bow down to me.
Who do you think you are? We're gonna kill you. Then we'll see what comes in your dreams.
Thankfully, the brothers didn't actually kill him, but they did rip off his robe and throw him into a large pit. Then they see some traders leading camels piled high with spices. This gives them a better idea.
Let's sell him!
And they do. Then they killed a goat, dipped Joseph's beautiful coat in its blood, and showed the stained coat to their father.
My son has been killed! No!
Jacob was so upset that he tore his clothes. Meanwhile, the traders sold Joseph to a man named Potiphar, and Joseph went to live as a servant in Egypt. But God stayed with Joseph and gave him success in everything he did.
I want to put you in charge of my whole household.
Oh my God! Wow! Thank you. I will do my best to lead well.
Because of God, Potiphar's household was blessed. But this didn't last long. God allowed some events that caused Joseph to be thrown in jail, even though he did nothing wrong. Still, God stayed with Joseph even while he was in prison.
Oh man, how am I going to get myself out of this?
Is your name Joseph?
Yeah, and I did nothing wrong, but I've been thrown in jail for some reason. But I know God is always here for me.
You are confident, and you look like a capable person. I'll put all the prisoners under your command. Help me run this place.
During this time, 2 more men came into the prison. A cupbearer, someone who protects the pharaoh from being poisoned by drinking from his cup before he does, and a baker. One night, these 2 prisoners had a dream that worried them.
Tell me your dreams.
Joseph knew that God could help him tell what their dreams meant. First, the cupbearer tells Joseph his dream. God told Joseph that the dream meant good news.
You will get your job back.
Then the baker told Joseph his dream. God revealed that the baker's dream wasn't such good news.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but the Pharaoh is going to kill you.
Because God knew everything, the dreams he led Joseph to interpret came true. The cupbearer got out of jail, just as Joseph told him. But the cupbearer forgot to tell Pharaoh about Joseph and his amazing God-given gift. So Joseph stayed locked away in prison for a little longer. After 2 more years, the Pharaoh began having weird dreams too.
I remember something. God gave a man named Joseph the ability to interpret dreams.
So the Pharaoh sent for Joseph.
I've heard that. When you hear a dream, you can interpret it.
I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires.
So Pharaoh told Joseph about his dream about how 7 ugly, skinny cows ate 7 fat cows, and how the heads of 7 scrawny pieces of grain ate the heads of 7 big, healthy pieces of grain. After Pharaoh told his dream to Joseph, God told Joseph what it meant.
The 7 fat cows and the good grain represent 7 good years of crops. And the 7 skinny cows and bad grain represent 7 bad years of crops, a time when there won't be enough food for everyone.
Joseph then suggested that Pharaoh give someone the job of storing up food.
Can we find anyone like Joseph? He has the Spirit of God in him. Then, Joseph, I declare you,
My man!
you'll be in charge of storing food and preparing the country for the famine.
To make the job official, the Pharaoh put a ring on Joseph's finger, dressed him in beautiful robes, and placed a gold chain around his neck. Egypt experienced 7 years of great harvests, just as God said they would. Joseph had stored lots and lots and lots of food, so much that he stopped keeping track of all of it. Good thing too, because soon enough, the 7 years of bad harvest began. Famine destroyed the land, and everyone came to Egypt to buy grain, even Joseph's long-lost brothers. When Joseph's brother arrived in Egypt, they bowed down to him, just like in Joseph's dreams from years ago. Joseph recognized his brothers, but his brothers didn't recognize him. Then Joseph told them his identity.
I'm Joseph, your brother.
But Joseph's brothers didn't know what to think, so Joseph said,
Okay, how do I say this? Do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you.
After Joseph told them this, they cried and hugged and told each other stories from the past few years. Then Joseph sent them home to get their father.
I want the whole family to live in Egypt.
Throughout his life, Joseph was put in a lot of tough situations, but God is good and used all of them for good. Joseph learned to depend on God alone. God knew these difficult things were all part of his great big plan, part of the big God story. Remember the promise God gave Abraham and how Abraham's family tree led to the Redeemer being born? Well, if God hadn't prepared a way to keep the family alive, they would have died out in the famine. Joseph's brothers wanted to harm Joseph, but God intended it for good to save many lives. Sometimes things in life are pretty hard, but God can use these hard things to help us depend on Him. God also changes us when we step out in faith and obediently trust in Him. These times can help us depend on God because God is trustworthy.